Today we have Mike Giacco, Director of Technology, as our guest, one of our own, and we'll talk about drones, laser technology, BIM, and a whole host of technology things. Hi, this is Abul Islam. Welcome to my podcast, Bridging Connections. So without further ado, I'd like to go to Mike and one of our own, Mike Giacco, our Director of Technology, and we'll start the discussion with drones that we have been so fortunate among many others in the industry, few others in the industry, I would say, that we have spent years in practicing the capabilities of drones in every aspect of what we practice, primarily as a civil engineering structural firm. So Mike, talk a little bit about the future, the near future, with regard to the drone technology as it applies to structure inspection and evaluation, i.e. bridge inspection, as it applies to survey and civil engineering, that to what extent drones can really impact the efficiency of our workflow in a very significant manner and not be considered just a pilot project anymore that many are discussing. I think we can say with a lot of confidence that our 6 years of experience in seeing the drone technology evolve has given us a very big competitive advantage with regard to seeing the future of drone technology in other areas. As I said that, so let's talk about your understanding and applications that you're doing within the company.
Well, first of all, thank you, Abul, for having me here today. And, I very much agree with you in the 6 years that we've had our technology program in general in existence, but all starting with our drone forays. We've seen a great deal of success. Back in 2016, and this was before even the FAA had the Part 107 regulations that govern unmanned aerial systems operations in place, we found great success pairing with some of our DOT partners and introducing the technology for all the benefits that it does bring. We certainly didn't want to complicate the project. We weren't looking for some false sense of congratulatory issuance to basically set ourselves apart because of a toy or because of some fanfare we were creating around this new and cutting edge technology. We were seeing real world application for it and a way to really reap that benefit. Fast forward from 2016, we're here in the present, and as you're very well aware, we're introducing things into the drone realm like artificial intelligence, laser scanning, machine learning, taking things one step ahead of where we previously saw the industry being before. As you mentioned, we've had some great success primarily with our bridge inspection, where we see a majority of our opportunity. We're very good at understanding where within our existing contracts we can interject drone technology and really see the benefit of the camera systems, the payloads and sensors that we can now put on them that are very easily adaptable. We've gone from customization and really setting the foundation of drone industry to now getting out of the box payloads that can really help us accelerate what we can collect in terms of data, imagery, what you have. But also have the ability for new pilots to quickly understand, train, and again, tap into this resource without having any real high level or vast breadth of experience that would take years upon years of really trying to acquire, where they could begin to operate these types of technologies efficiently. So again, like you mentioned, we've seen it with bridge inspection. We've certainly seen it with survey. I think that's one avenue that we quite often see drones interjected with, whether it's photogrammetry, whether it's LiDAR technology that's allowing us to create topography mapping and basically digital twins nowadays. We become very efficient in not just the process, navigating the regulatory issues, but I think what's most important is the understanding of what this data really yields for us. One of our mantras that is we don't do technology for technology's sake. We need a real purpose for it. There needs to be a real return for our clients. So we make a concerted effort to not succumb to the buzz around all this flowery technology. We look at it with a hard engineering eye, with a real understanding of what those capabilities are, and then we work with our traditional engineers to find the correct avenues to interject those technologies.
Great. I have a question on drones that's a real one because most of our clients, are public clients, DOTs, and they have a great, a broad, area of acceptance and implementation of new technologies such as drones, in a pilot level, in an advanced level, or somewhere in between over there too. For example, the Utah DOT is way ahead in the game with regard to utilization of drones. With regard to highway emergency incidents that happens in a very advanced way. Once the incident happens, for example, in a highway accident, the firefighters, the municipal guys that are involved nearby all get real-time pictures from that drone, and the drone covers everything with regard to the recreating of the accident scenario, all in real time, not in hours and minutes. So, and there are other agencies that are beginning to use drones as a practical problem-solving tool. But many DOTs, public agencies that we work with, are not advanced enough to truly embrace it as a practical problem-solving tool of what they do or what we help them to do as their consultants. What is your experience with regard to several DOTs that you have worked with, and how we can kind of persuade them, sell them, or market it to them with regard to more utilization of drones in their day-to-day work, but that we know so much about and that we are so familiar with, including bridge inspection, construction inspection, survey, for example, how we can just help them to embrace the drone technology faster. What would you say?
Well, I mean, Abul, first of all, you cite a great example, especially with a DOT like Utah. They, not only are progressively thinking, but I think they also have the convenience that they aren't as densely populated like where we are here up in the Northeast. So the opportunity to interject technology in the safest of manner, which is probably really why they're capable of doing that at a remote bridge site somewhere in the middle of a Utah desert, makes a lot of sense because you're not flying around tall buildings, you don't have live traffic, you don't have pedestrians in those types of environments, I should say. Where we have seen our great deal of success, again, dealing with the very complex environment we have up here on the East, or I should say in the East Coast in general, is by finding a way to educate our DOT counterparts so that they can, and you said it best, accept the technology. And not accept it in the sense of just accept it. No, put the record that we create with the data that we gathered on file and have the confidence that it meets all the conventional requirements that you necessitated throughout the entire duration of your DOT's existence and inspection in general. So if we'll focus on bridge inspection again, since that's really one of the most prevalent things that we do. DOTs have been doing these inspections for decades, and there's been a traditional process that has worked really, really well. A lot of these DOTs lack the funding, federally and local, or those fundings are governed in a sense that we have to do our job in a certain manner, collect our information and report it in a certain manner, or we don't get paid. Drones have not been part of that manner up and really till about 3 to 4 years ago, and they certainly have not been part of an accepted part of that process really until the past couple of years. So what we've had to do, and you've been a great part of this as well too, to march ourselves into our DOTs that we've formed great relationships with, present the idea of utilizing a great technology like drones, showing them through pilot projects why it's a viable solution, being professional as well too. And that doesn't mean just talking the talk and walking the walk, but having our paperwork in order, coordinating with the FAA and giving a lot of those nuances to the DOT so they really understand that we're not just doing this off the cuff. We're not just going out and buying a drone and saying that we're part of the herd now that is allowed to get ourselves to places previously difficult to get to, collect data that might have been unachievable in the past. We're now helping our DOTs understand the reasons why you need to open your eyes to this technology. Safety, cost effectiveness, efficiencies, the speed that we can do this work, all are improved when we supplement our traditional efforts with this type of technology. We need to locate the DOTs that can help us first and foremost open the rest of our country's eyes to these applications. We've had some great successes with a lot of the DOTs local to us here in the Northeast. And once other DOTs throughout the country begin to see, hey, there's one of the busiest cities in our country, and they went ahead and actually authorized AI to go out there with a drone on a regular basis and collect all this information and get the job done in a morning's time, as opposed to lane closures, weeks of work, possible structure climbing. You can see where this goes. The expense, the safety, just the entire process, traditionally, which is accepted, almost seems exacerbated in comparison to what we can do with our technology. So probably the biggest thing that we need to focus on, and as you said, is acceptance.
Very good, very good. But I can understand the big cities like you explained. New York City, our example, or Boston. Big cities versus Utah. With regard to the composition of the topography, the land, the people, the economic activity. Concentration of a lot of people in a small area, economic importance, and all that, and why they would be more sensitive with regard to risk that they perceive, especially in New York City with our experience with so many agencies, some of them, law enforcement. There are so many layers of law enforcement agencies that have to know where the drone is, especially on strategic and critical areas near the airports and the cities and all that. And we have gone through all of those experiences in the last 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
But those cities are coming around and accepting, eventually, hopefully, will accept the drone as a very viable and efficient technology in what we do in the business of engineering and construction. The good news is also that in the bipartisan infrastructure trillion-dollar bill, there is monies for innovative technologies given to every DOT, and our DOT, I saw that in the list that they presented the other day in the presentation for consultants for the DOT. There's some serious monies, a couple millions of dollars with regard to advancing drone technology at the DOT level. So once they get the money, I just hope that at the state level, at the DOT level, they use that resources to create a sort of an ombudsman or a group of technology, so that we on the private side of the industry can coalesce and cooperate with them to really promote this drone technology that has got so much potential. LiDAR mounted, finding the cubic yards of earth that we take painstakingly days, inspectors, all that, and you do it in just a couple of minutes with regard to what was the volume of the cubic yard of excavation and fill in a project site, and you get very precise results. So it has so much potential, within our industry, in the construction industry, and I only can envision a mass embracing of the drone technology, and thereby get the efficiency, money, and time with regard to what we do in our world. So the next question I would say is with regard to technology, that many firms that have roots in civil engineering, mechanical engineering, or engineering consulting, are finding lately, though, that the potential of data science, artificial intelligence, software engineering, that can dramatically improve the work that we do, very dramatically. But there is a mixed, acceptance or embracing across the entire industry. We at AI Engineers are always trying to take the risk, and it is. I do understand that the public, public domain, public institutions, states, municipalities, are the last entities to take risks, because of their public responsibility. We can understand that. We at the private sphere can take the risk with regard to a new technology. Unless you take the risk, the returns are not there going to be. So we take the risk with regard to the embracing of the new technology, invest monies, resources, people, and most of the time it has returns. Coming back to this use of artificial intelligence, data, software engineering, what can you talk about with regard to transforming our design effort, with regard to BIM, 3D printer that we have done some work, and we are doing regionally? What potential do you think that we could have in a year or two in dramatically improving the efficiencies of our design work from a 2D world to a 3D world? Talk about that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think you framed the question perfectly because all these different technologies do intertwine. And we've seen that firsthand here. What we collect with our drones, laser scanners, and then design in 3D all can be combined. And at the end of the day, give us a very comprehensive set of data in interpretation of the work that we're doing. Now, you mentioned artificial intelligence, and as you know, that's been an absolute game changer for us in the sense of being able to do our work efficiently, timely, and at the highest level possibly that we can. So let's take a step back and just quickly talk about the traditional aspect of our work, because I think that helps frame the value of technology. Traditional aspects involved a lot of existential factors and expenses, lane closures to do our work, police details, traffic trucks, expensive access equipment, and most importantly, putting our own employees that you see come out of our front door day in and day out at particular risks that not many jobs that you talk to your friends and colleagues that aren't in our industry have to do. Our own Chris Kalasa and Chris Chuck are experts in structure climbing. And when you see them do this activity, it's, to me, something I personally could never get myself to go out and hang off a bridge by a bunch of ropes. I mean, but that is how it's done, as you know. And the ability now to get our technology out there, collect that information, and now generate a similar report is key to helping protect our guys, protect the money that we're trying to hold on to and budget so well. But most importantly, once we go ahead and we complete that work, we need to be even efficient on the back end. So now we go out with a drone as opposed to going out with an actual human that may take, for our reports, maybe 100 photos, maybe 200 photos. But our drone takes 1,200 photos, 12,000 photos, depending on if we're mapping and we have to blanket a bridge for the purpose of photogrammetry. That's a lot of information on the back end for one of our inspectors or one of our engineers to sort through efficiently. So now we have artificial intelligence. And we've been very fortunate to pair with a certain firm that we found in our industry that's allowed us to accelerate the way we analyze our data to a point I don't think we ever even could see coming. So right now in the industry, we know artificial intelligence is prevalent. It's a buzzword, but what exactly is that for us? We've seen examples of analyzing 2D imagery. So for instance, we look at a concrete wall, there's cracks. We take a picture of it, throw it into our computer that has an artificial intelligence algorithm there, and it highlights the cracks and it maps it. Fantastic. Problem being is that's one photo. Now we have 11,999 photos. We have to now have our engineers go on through. The artificial intelligence we're currently utilizing develops a three-dimensional model that allows us to view whatever subject we're analyzing in the third dimension and have real context to it. And now the artificial intelligence analyzes that model holistically. So instead of looking at one singular image, we are looking at an entire bridge, for instance. And in a moment, that algorithm will scan the entire bridge, highlight everything in context. So if we have columns that are cylindrical and there's not four faces to get perfectly perpendicular images of, that model will be analyzed in its third dimension, and you'll see cracks, you'll see spalls, anything that would wrap around that cylindrical member of that structure will now be completely understandable and evident. Most importantly, it's not just a pretty picture. All that information then gets cataloged, categorized, and sorted into granular spreadsheets, summarized spreadsheets, and imagery that is really easily understood even to the lay person's eye. It doesn't take an engineer, it doesn't take an inspector to understand what, at least at face value, the condition of a particular asset might be. So our artificial intelligence has not only helped us do our job better and faster, it has absolutely improved the efficiency that we do with our job. And at the end of the day, the report that we pass on to our clients, it is that much more thorough than anything we've been previously able to achieve, because the technology is doing all the work in the background as opposed to one mind from one inspector doing their very best to be as thorough as possible. But you being an inspector firsthand can probably attest to it's time. It's a lot of information to sort through. Well, we now let the computer do that, and it does it to a level of efficiency that, frankly, we have not been able to see before.
Great, Mike. I have as you mentioned about I spent considerable time over 38 years of my career as a bridge inspector, and the biennial inspection and how sensitive the state is, and rightly so, with regard to maintaining the safety of their bridges in the format, NHA guidelines, state guidelines, with regard to, the evaluation of each component of the structure. I always think about that we have served and continue to serve almost like 10 or 12 or 15 DOTs in bridge inspection and road rating for the last 20, 25 years and then we have got so much data about their bridges, the photographs, although each biennial inspection and the next one, the other biennial inspection become not so important. You just look at the last inspection and the documentation. But in any case, if we can use this data that you're talking about, we can even actually monetize the data on behalf of our DOTs, and then go as a pilot project to our DOTs that you can save a lot of money, and we'll help you do that one if we get your permission. And we need to get their permission too, to have that data, use your system and process of artificial intelligence and software on the background to tell instantly about the condition and the state of affairs, state of the bridge, of any bridge in their inventory system. So if for example the state of Connecticut has 4,500 bridges, or the state of New York has 22,000 bridges, they just press the bin number and they have the information right there, whoever they authorize to have that one, the condition of the bridge, the issues and their load restrictions and all the stuff that we do on load rating. So the idea is that given that we have so much data, I think about that. We have to get our state DOTs, we have agreements. This can be easily monetized by the DOTs. They are the real owners of the bridges, and brought about a huge level of efficiency in terms of the instant access of the information about their bridge.
So what you're absolutely touching upon is, again, another technology we've been fortunate to work with, which is machine learning. It's certainly tied into artificial intelligence, but to your point, when we are so lucky to have years, decades of inspection records, photographs, logged deficiencies, all these DOTs within our states have these backlogs of all this information. We can take that and feed that into our computers that will literally learn from that data. And what we yield from that is a level of predictive maintenance and understanding of prioritization of where our infrastructure is heading. And what I mean by that is, in the simplest of terms, we can predict when a structure will fail based off of the failures of all the structures that came before. But we're not going to sit there and rack our brains and you and I look at comparisons and break out the spreadsheets on your conference room table and try to find this for ourselves. That's just, it's a task in futility. It's never going to happen. And we would miss so many trends and patterns. Let the computers take over. Let the technology yield the benefit that we know and understand that it can do. Now, again, it comes back a lot to educating those that would be giving us that information. What's the value in sharing us what could be with us, I should say, what could be possibly very sensitive information, at least in the DOT's opinion? Well, if we can take that information, allow our computers to digest it, and then find patterns, find similarities into either structure type, construction, material, location, especially up here in the Northeast. We know the abuse that our infrastructure takes, whether it's just the winters in general or happening to be so closely located to the ocean. There's a lot of different factors that weigh very heavily on the infrastructure around us. If we can allow a computer to analyze that, understand it, and eventually predict what can come from that, we've hit a home run. We now take all these records that are just sitting in the basement of some DOT somewhere because some federal guidelines said you have to retain these for 10, 20, 50 years, whatever it may be, and now we bring new life to them. We bring value to it, and as you just said, we monetize it. We say something that occurred back in the 1950s when this bridge was originally built can hint to something that is going on current and present day. And through gathering all that information, feeding it into our computer, and allowing the machine learning to take on over, we see the results of that and we yield that benefit.
Great. Let's talk briefly about BIM and 3D printer. And is there anything out there, better? And I'm not saying Autodesk, Revit, or beyond, or any other new proprietary software that can really help us to really crank up this 3D and address this interoperability issues with the, I mean, Autodesk is the main guy in terms of the industry leader, but they have Revit and we all use it. Is there something more cooler, more advanced than Revit, and how this this BIM 3D with regard to our design work that we do for buildings and for bridges is still, it's not there. The 3D is not there into the bridge industry, although they call it B, lowercase RIM. Very few people are still practicing that one. There are companies that are practicing, but in the building industry, there is more acceptance and practice of the BIM, for the last several years, and now it is taking far more advanced BIM 3D. That is, with Revit and BIM. But I am hearing that there are even better and better software than of what we has been using historically. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. So I think first and foremost, Revit is such a powerful, diverse software. It's really where we saw a lot of the BIM foundation begin to be built upon because of its capabilities. But to your point, while it probably is the biggest mainstay in the BIM realm, because of how diversified its clientele that contributes to the BIM process, they're all utilizing Revit. But with that being said, there's been certain advancements that, to me, enhance the process in the sense that it speeds up the process. I think one of the biggest things we've encountered when we've begun to really progress our BIM services is the actual paid work that is available out there. We've heard for years now, BIM's coming, be prepared, it's here. I'm sorry. I mean, we know it's here, but we have, at least as a company, or at least in the public sector, have seen very few projects funded in a manner that allow for a three-dimensional, two-scale model in a virtual realm constructed before the project begins and still utilize that model throughout the lifetime of that project. It's either that our traditional DOTs or clients that we work with on a daily basis haven't found a efficient way to get that into their workflows, or simply the federal and state dollars are not plentiful enough to allow that level of design to actually occur. So we stick to two-dimensional drawings. It's also what the contractor, to a degree, is used to, and that is status quo. We march forward, and here we are. But to your point, there's a better way of doing it. So now we have a lot of these new advanced softwares that are going to help us take our Revit platform and make things a little bit easier. And such softwares are, again, Autodesk products, Navisworks, InfraWorks, even SketchUp that you see Google owns nowadays. These are platforms that are very, to a degree, at least in my opinion, simplistic, at least compared to Revit. It's a lot of push-pull elements. You want to build a wall? Click the wall button, drag it upwards. Tell me how tall that wall needs to be. There's the first element of your 3D BIM model. Now, let's lay some conduit. Go ahead and grab the conduit tool. Drag it in 2D. Tell it where it needs to go. Go into the third dimension. Bring it up 3 feet into the wall where it should be. It's really as simple as that. And that's really helped us enhance how we can enter into the BIM world. Too often, I think our clients will look at what is the time that and the expense that it will take to add a component that was traditionally not part of the way we have done our business. We need to help them understand that there's avenues to get us there. Now, you mentioned software, but you also very well know that the data that we collect with our drones and our scanners and 3D printing will all contribute to how we develop a model that much more faster and that much more efficiently. So let's take laser scanning. We know that we can go out and collect existing condition data very quickly, but then we can come back and use, like you said, some cool softwares like Topo DOT or Edgewise and extract 3D features from the scans fairly automatically, bring it into Revit, and now we have the basis, maybe almost, in a perfect world, 60% of our BIM model constructed. And now we get into the real details. We're not looking at the walls. We're not looking at the floor plan. A lot of the tedious stuff that really is the necessity of getting into an in-depth, fully constructed BIM model. We leverage our technology, help that technology work our way towards a more efficient process that can get us further down the BIM avenue, and then we can jump into our BIM services more efficiently, more cost effectively, because we're helping ourselves get through the process that much more quickly. And I think in time, when we can substantiate to DOTs, our clients, that we have the means of generating a BIM model but doing it quickly and efficiently so it doesn't hinder the actual traditional process, the acceptance again will be there, where we'll start seeing BIM more prevalently used throughout the entire industry, but most importantly, more often.
Great answer, Mike. But I'll tell you a comment. Just a year ago, the industry refrain is that not everybody in the chain, the design, construction, maintenance, change is using BIM or 3D. There's a lot of so many pop and mom general contractors in any neighborhood in all of our country. They do projects from somewhere from $500,000 to no more than $5 million. Their platforms, they only understand 2D drawings, and this is a real problem, So unless everybody in the industry, and that includes the software manufacturers, the big hunky-dory Autodesk and other guys too, and the big contractors, all band together and try to address this issue, that at the bid level for those small contracts, you have these small contractors, they don't have the ability to invest in BIM and do everything accordingly. And therefore, the designer says, what's the point of having a BIM and 3D when the work that the contractor will be doing, from shop drawing reviews to the entire construction process, will be in 2D, And that's a real issue. Somebody's got to address that one in order to have more universal use of the BIM technology, and that's a real problem. I've talked to many people, including project managers in our own company, that say the same thing, and they have every logic and rationale to say that. What's the point of doing it in BIM and then you just have the bid documents and the contractor only wants to see it in 2D, not BIM. You take advantage of that one. Only 15 to 20% of the contractors have really switched to BIM platform in the last 5 or 7 years. Bulk of the general contractors, and small ones especially, have not switched to BIM. And there's a valid argument can be made that who is responsible to helping universalize sort of the application of BIM. It's an ongoing discussion, just a comment that
You're 100% right. And I think that that lends itself to is the recent discussions about digital delivery process. We've seen, for instance, we have an office in Pennsylvania, and we know through going to certain presentations and interactions with our counterparts at the DOT, they are taking the digital delivery process very seriously. Certain entities in New York and areas that tend to be a little bit more progressive or open-minded, or to your point, have the contractors or the trades that could really benefit from designing in 3D present. And when it's mandated by the people that are paying your bills, suddenly you become proficient in it, right? I mean, yes, when it's time, and to your point, even internally, we've seen a bit of resistance because, and it's a legitimate answer, guys, our client is not going to pay for that. So how do we substantiate taking 2 to 3 of our full-time designers away from billable work, contributing to getting to the endpoint on that contract, and they're doing nothing that the contract requires? How do we substantiate that? Well, if our clients see the value, and part of that could be us, again, educating them just like all the other technologies we discussed. But if they see the value, they mandate it. They make it part of their specifications and the way that they generate their construction documents. The industry will start to have no choice but to begin to evolve. We've seen that over in Europe. They're far more progressive in the understanding of the advantages, the change order reductions, the conflict reductions, the ability to be more efficient, whether it's with time or material or manpower. It really works. But as things are over here, we tend to be a little bit slower to the game. And it's because I think it's either a level of skepticism or, again, we flat out just are not getting paid to do that quite yet. Once the people that are paying our bills or are divvying up the federal and local dollars say, guys, you have no choice now but to utilize third dimension technology, getting ourselves and designing where we can place ourselves inside that environment and have a full understanding of the working world that will be going on around us during this project, that is when I think you will begin to see that transition. Otherwise, to your point, What incentive does the mom and pop shop down the street from us that's only 3 persons deep in their payroll have to adopt this? They're barely holding water and trying to get their 2D plans out. Well, we'll see some change if their clients are the ones that are saying you have no choice now.
Very good. The other quick two topics that I want to quickly discuss with you is talk a little bit about. Of course, I know we have non-disclosure agreements with many of those research universities, and that we have agreements with regard to bringing that knowledge at the AI engineer level of what we're trying to do with the academia in terms of innovation in our industry. Briefly take a minute or two to just kind of update us with regard to what we are trying to do and what areas we are targeting in our industry, civil engineering, mostly structural, civil, electrical, mechanical, that we do, fire protection design, drainage, survey, and all the stuff that we do. What relevance we have and what we are planning to do, and how important is this keeping a connection with the academia at the research level is also useful for us.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a great, comment that you're making right now, because one thing that you've mentioned as, over the 6 years that we've developed our technology program is we're not in the business of research and development.
Absolutely.
We're in the business of creating efficiencies that ultimately will lead to more cost savings and hopefully more money, and that's what I think the end goal is for everybody. So when you start looking at certain technologies and what the actual real contribution would be, we only have so much time between actual implementation and studying that. Well, here comes the academic world. We can utilize graduate level students or professors in their advanced research to understand what could be coming down that pipeline. And as you know, we are constantly striving to stay ahead of the rest of our competition with the latest and greatest that's going to be out there. And one of those technologies, and I'm going to clue our guests into something that, I probably shouldn't divulge because it is one of those things that is going to be setting us apart, has been the latest discussion on synthetic aperture radar. So right now, to date, drones or any level of photographic documentation, or really any level of technology for the most part that is carried on a drone or not making physical contact with a subject, is all face value. It's what you can see on the surface. It's what a thermal camera can read, but again, without having some level of temperature difference to give you a difference in reading from that thermal camera. The data might not be actually that useful. But what synthetic aperture radar is, simply put, is an aerial version of ground penetrating radar. So for the first time, we're going to be able to take a peek behind the curtains with a drone carrying a miniaturized version of what is actually, if you believe it or not, a technology that's been in existence for quite some time that the survey world, the military, weathermen have taken, weather people have taken advantage of. Synthetic aperture radar has been around for a while, but it's necessitated utilizing the satellites that are surrounding our Earth in a very complex dance that has to be coordinated with all sorts of federal and local entities to make sure that when we're trying to locate these satellites and have the aperture and the radar focused at particular areas, we can actually have equipment that is not our own available and ready and pointed in those directions. It's a big operation. It's complex. Well, now we've miniaturized that and we've attached it to one of our drones, and we're going to be able to focus that beacon right on a particular area of a bridge, of a facade, of a construction site that we're currently surveying, and be able to see into the concrete of the bridge, through the brick mortar joints of a building facade, or into a test pit on a construction site, and understand if there's compromised areas, voids, if there's fractures, if there's things that the human eye can't see at face value. This technology is going to bring us there. We're a couple of years on off, and we're working with a couple different universities here up in the Northeast to really refine that technology. It's something I'm very excited about because, again, we can conceive where LiDAR is going to bring us. We can conceive where virtual and augmented and mixed reality may bring our industry. But the one thing we always get asked all the time is, can you see in the structure? Can you actually fly up to that level and see what's going on behind that hairline crack? Is it bigger within that structure, for instance? And now we're going to have that ability. We're still a little far off, so I don't want to sound overly confident like we're going to be doing this tomorrow and provide you a fantastic example, but it is going to be that next level in the industry. And things like that, staying progressive, outside of the box, not being so rigid and stringent, has allowed our company to really reap the benefit of a lot of these advanced and at probably what was thought of pie in the sky technologies that are realistic and are going to be democratized at some point in the very near future and available in a very nice refined payload that the market will see and have available to them.
Great. You mentioned the phrase outside the box, Mike, and we always do that all sorts of time. In the conventional industry, when you do outside the box and the risks go up, your supervisors, owners, or business owners don't stomach that one because there's always the least appetite for risk. And unfortunately, it is the risk that creates innovation and new ideas too. So I encourage people to think outside the box, as you know, and you do, and many of the practicing engineers here always have that mindset to create new ideas, innovations, new ways of doing the things, better ways of doing the things. So that reminds me of that, risk and thinking outside the box is kind of a little bit of that, not a lot, is our engineering firm's hallmark.
Absolutely. I think it's a hallmark of the entrepreneurial spirit. Excuse me, that's a
sorry.
mouthful.
I know, it happens to me all the time.
Absolutely. And, again, not because, you're the owner of the company that I work for or the gentleman that's sitting across from me, but you lead by example, and you've done that, and you tasked us 6 years ago to go out, stop thinking conventional means. Don't let the rigidness of the industry, by the very nature of our industry, has confined us to. Look at what can be interjected, what can be disruptive, what can make people change their minds and truly understand the value that a given technology can bring. And that's what we have done. We've taken a level of risk. I've gone from flying a drone where my hands are shaking to the point where it's questionable whether we're getting good data or not, to the point where, hey guys, we're going to go fly a major structure next week, short notice, emergency situation. What can you do? Do you need us today? We don't need to wait till next week. We're ready to go. And when we have that level of confidence, when we have that level of experience, when we know how to correctly absorb that risk, we see success.
Absolutely. I believe in the new generation, especially the millennial generation, that will define our workforce by 2030. 75% of our workforce will be millennial. And the way to deal with millennials and even the other generation, everybody's smart in my dictionary, hardworking, smart, capable. But here's the catch, that you have to give them a challenge, and they may even fail. If they fail, then you ask them, what lessons did you learn? Mm-hmm. And they will become better the next time. I bet that one. And that is the vision that I have, for this entire organization. Just get out of the way. Once you give them a challenge and assignment, guide them, just get out of the way. And they will do a much better job than I did when I was a production level engineer, wherever I was working, including my company in the early part of that one. And that's what I believe in, that, you have to empower people and trust them, so that they build their own confidence to do things better and better, more innovative. I'm going to just wrap it up by thanking Mike for doing a great job, especially, which is very unlike in any other companies, that you and your technology group, couple of people that you have, the smart people, hardworking people that you work with. In addition to that, you have that disciplined engineers, civil engineers, surveyors, drainage engineers, mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, bridge inspectors, load raters, designers, highway, the list goes on. Keeping a tab, connecting them, with their projects helps us also to advance our new technology agenda. Because if they share the challenging project with you, you can always, with them, creatively think about bringing new technology in what they are doing conventionally. So that in itself is a great achievement for you and the organization, based on our vision of agility. The agile organization goes a long way in expanding and ushering in new technology as a practicing way of doing things inside our company. I thank you, Mike. If you have any wrapping words, I'd like to listen to you, but thank you for your time and discussing with me what cool things are happening at AI Engineers technology-wise.
Well, thank you, Abul. And, just a final comment. You're 100% right. Communication, cooperation, a little bit of risk, and a lot of ingenuity can amount to some great success. And we've been able to really, really get to that point. So I'm looking forward to what the future has. I'm fortunate. I'm a young guy. I'm not going anywhere. We got a lot of work to do in front of us, and we're going to have a lot of fun doing it. So I'm looking forward to it. And thank you again for having me.
Have a good one, Mike.
You too, Abul.
The Bridging Connections podcast is brought to you by AI Engineers.